Hello everyone, back tuning in today's second video, doing the GWV Sunday Round Up for today's second video. As usual, over your Sunday lunchtime, Sunday afternoon, we're going to have a bit of a eclectic look at this and that. So we'll look at what's happening in the oceans, we'll look at what's happening in the stratosphere over the North Pole, we'll have a look at some indexes, QBO, NAO, AO, and all that kind of thing, and also the weather for the next week to 10 days as well, coming up for your Sunday Roundup today. We released Solar Sunday this morning, so that's our first Solar Sunday video that we've done since August. So we only do 2 or 3 of those a year at GWV. It's always quite a special day when we do Solar Sunday, and that video is here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit, and it's above the snow desk. Later on today, it'll be placed on the Solar Cycle 24-25 updates page, and there'll be a written report that goes with it as well. So have a look at that and have a read if you would like to do that. This evening we're going to do an ensembles watch. We'll go through all members of the GF ensembles, see what they're all showing. And there's a lot of uncertainty creeping in now for the rest of February. We're getting this stratospheric warming. There has been an idea within the model output that we might get some appreciably cold weather from this stratospheric warming via easy winds, but there's a bit of a wobble going on, as always, with the model output. They're playing up again this morning, so I'll talk you through everything that's going on with that very shortly. But we're going to begin by having a look at the ocean. So these are the sea surface temperature anomalies of the oceans of the world from NOAA, and this is from last week when we did last week's GWV's Sunday Roundup. So the areas we're interested in specifically is going to be the Pacific, and particularly the ENSO region, that's in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, also the Northern Pacific, and over here in the Atlantic Ocean. So that's how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking this time last week. This is the latest, and the La Nina signal continues. All regions of the ENSO region are still coming out colder than average, so the blue colours there giving the game away, what's going on. We continue to see the cold event, and the La Nina persists through the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Also turning colder up in the northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean, so temperatures continue to cool down there, and now actually quite cold in that part of the Pacific Ocean, maybe heading towards a cold PDO, probably in response to this La Nina that we've seen through the ENSO region. In the Atlantic, very little change. It is cooling down a little bit to the south of Greenland around here, possibly starting to see signs of a cold blob beginning to re-emerge. I think that's mainly down to continuous sort of cold air coming out of Canada and Greenland. Actually, we've had repeated shots of cold air moving out of Canada and Greenland through this winter, and I assume that is cooling the sea surface temperatures down there in the northern part of the Atlantic. Generally, though, the Atlantic is in quite a warm state still, actually, particularly this central part of the Atlantic Ocean. It is colder over towards the coast of Africa, but no real changes in either the Atlantic or the Pacific over the past week, except probably it has turned a bit colder in the northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean. I'll just show you this. I haven't looked at this for a while. This is from the National Ice Centre. So this is depicting snow cover across Eurasia. So this is Russia, of course, just here, completely covered from west to east, and all points in between, completely covered by snow, of course. That snow extends into eastern parts of Europe, just here, and actually we do have snow cover pushing quite a long way west and south into Europe now. So, for example, many parts of France have got snow cover. Central northern parts of Spain have got some snow cover as well. That's not all that unusual, really. They do get quite a lot of snow, actually, in northern parts of Spain, particularly close to the Pyrenees, and even down into sort of North Africa. I mean, this is Algeria just here, and again, we do see some areas with snow cover there. British Isles not actually doing all that well at the moment. There's some snow over the Scottish mountains, of course, showing up, but generally not much snow. The snow seems to be across more central parts of Europe as well. Also, southeastern Europe, interestingly, not having very much snow, but had a very mild winter down across the Balkans and through to Greece, those sort of areas. The areas that were very, very cold last winter, they had a really brutal winter for southeast of Europe last winter. Not as cold, not anywhere near as cold this winter, quite interestingly. So moving on to the QBO next, we've got our latest number in for the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation. The easterly QBO continues. So this is it's almost like a pulse, really, within the atmosphere. It's depicting the strength of the zonal westerlies. When you're in a westerly QBO, you're strengthening the zonal westerlies. When you are in an easterly QBO, you're weakening the zonal westerlies. We went into the easterly phase of the quasi-biennial oscillation through the summer. Around this point just here, we continue to be in the easterly QBO. So November's QBO number comes out at minus 17.20. December comes out at minus 18.12, and then January 2018 comes out at minus 19.02. So the easterly QBO continues. It's not a really strong QBO, easterly QBO. We have had stronger, for example. Up here in 2012, we see that for a time the ECQBO went down to minus 22, minus 25, minus 27, minus 27, minus 26, for example. So it's not the strongest ECQBO we've had by any means, but it is. We are firmly into that EC phase of the QBO. It's probably got another 6 months or so left to go, and then we will probably start in the second half of this year to come out of ECQBO and move more towards the westerly phase of the quasi-biennial oscillation once again. But for now, the ECQBO continues. Right, this is what's going on in the stratosphere. Been talking about this a lot just lately. So this is from the JMA, Japanese Meteorological Agency. It's temperature at 30 HPA over the North Pole, which is one of the top layers of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. The grey line is betrayed for this time of the year, and the black line shows where we've been with these stratospheric temperatures at both 30 and 10 HPA through this season. So you see that we went very cold actually in January with these stratospheric temperatures. Real plunge in the black line there, way under the grey line. This is where we are right now. We are lifting the temperature back closer to average at 30 HPA. Here we go, higher up, this is how things are looking at 10 HPA. So this is even further up in the atmosphere, in the stratosphere. Again, same idea, the grey line is betrayed, the black line is where we've been for this season, going back to September just here. That's where we are right now. We are beginning to lift that black line up. We're at the start of quite a major Sudden Stratospheric Warming event over the North Pole, and in the coming days I think we should start to see that black line certainly lifting up to around there. Not sure if it'll go up to this sort of level, but it'll certainly go quite a way up that chart in the next few days as temperatures warm up at 10 HPA over the pole. This is the latest situation. This is from measureseal.fr. This is the GPS stratospheric temperature forecast for the next couple of weeks. So you see that we've split apart these blue colours, split the polar vortex, and we are moving in these green and yellow colours. So that's the warming that's taking place in the stratosphere at 10 HPA. This is forecast to intensify over the coming days, and actually we see red colours appearing there over Canada by the time we get through to the middle part of this coming week. So again, this major warming of the stratosphere that is taking place in the North Pole, or over the North Pole in the stratosphere. Those red colours ease off over Canada for a few days, and then back they come again as we get through to next weekend. A second bout of major warming occurs in the stratosphere around Greenland and Canada once again. We go through to the extended range of the GFS. That's how things are looking. Maybe another bit of a warming being picked up on there around Greenland around the 21st of February. Generally, temperatures stay quite significantly above average throughout through to the end of February now in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA. So we're going to get this major warming of the stratosphere over the North Pole. It's starting now. It's going to continue through the rest of the coming week. And the question then will be what happens, what effect does it have, if any, lower down into the troposphere. This is the ECMWF stratospheric temperature forecast for 10 HPA. That's where we're starting off at right now. So this is for today, the 11th of the month. And we see that, again, the black cross here is the actual North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere, just there. We can see that the warm colours, the sort of browns and oranges, they are beginning to move in towards the North Pole. So again, clearly the stratospheric warming is already occurring. It intensifies over the next few days. This takes us to the 14th of the month, February, Valentine's Day. And we see those red colours there over Canada again. So a major warming of the stratosphere is taking place over Canada, and all parts of the North Pole looking generally warmer than average by the middle part of the week. That continues up to a week away. This takes us to the 17th of February, and again we see those bright red colours there over Canada. So this continues to show a major warming of the stratosphere taking place on the Canadian side of the North Pole. That's how we finish up at day 10. By the way, this is University of Berlin website, same website that I showed you that QBO data from, by the way. So that's how we finish up at day 10. 240 hours, 20th of February. And again, the warming is easing off then at 10 HPA because we can't maintain those intense warm colours and temperatures all that long. So we are seeing the warming lifting off, but still generally all parts of the North Pole at 10 HPA still warmer than average. You've got to look lower down to see what the tropospheric response might be. So we go down to 30 HPA now. So this is the temperature forecast for today at 30 HPA. Already a little bit of warming is beginning to take place a bit lower down at 30 HPA. In the stratosphere. We run through and we see that this warming intensifies through the coming week, so it looks as though the warmth that we have at 10 HPA is going to propagate down to lower levels. That's the 14th, Valentine's Day, again, quite a warm temperature profile at 30 HPA. Just lifts off a little bit by the time you get through to the 17th, but then it re-intensifies again as we get through to day 10, which is 20th of February. So all the signs are there that this is a major warming of the stratosphere that's going to be taking place at 10 HPA. It looks like it's going to start to impact lower down at 30 HPA. And that is above the troposphere, of course, so we can't say that this necessarily will impact the troposphere, which is the boundary level of the atmosphere or weather is taking place. But I think it is quite likely that the effects of this will be some sort of blocking feature setting up somewhere over the North Pole, and that will be the big unknown question as we get through to the end of February and into March. Where is that blocking feature setting up? Zonal winds are going to go into reverse, so this is at 1 HPA, right at the very top of the stratosphere. At the moment, we are still positive with those zonal winds, but the black line tells us that we're going to reverse the zonal winds in the coming days, so we're going to go negative with the zonal winds. And then actually, normally what happens with this is that very quickly you'll tick back up into positive territory. But it does look as though the zonal winds are going to stay in reverse right the way through to day 10. So that's quite unusual, quite a prolonged period of negativity of the zonal winds going easterly, going into their negative phase. So again, the reverse of the zonal winds, it looks like we're going to get the warming of the stratosphere at 10 HPA moving down into 30 HPA, probably impacting the troposphere as well. I think we will set up some sort of significant blocking from this event in the coming weeks, but the question, as ever, is going to be, where is that blocking going to sit? Because just because you've got blocking, it doesn't necessarily mean that any one place is going to be cold from that blocking. And wherever there is blocking that's pushing out cold air, somewhere else is going to be on the warm side of the blocking feature. So we may get very cold from this Alternatively, we might be lucky or unlucky, depending on your point of view, and find ourselves on the mild side of a blocking ridge. If we are, then obviously we won't get anything particularly cold. One way of seeing whether this is impacting the sort of troposphere of the Arctic is to look at the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. So the black line here tells us where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation, the red lines at the end where the GFS symbols are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Been a funny old winter with the AO, because back in November and into December we was generally in the negative phase of the Arctic Oscillation. We went briefly positive there just before Christmas. I'm sure you remember it. We had a burst of very mild weather just before Christmas with strong westerly winds, but then we went negative again with the Arctic Oscillation through to early January. Since then we've been up and down, so positive there around the middle of January. Second half of January we go negative, end of January we go positive, start of February we go negative, and then we go positive again, and that's where we are right now with the Arctic Oscillation, well and truly in positive territory. GFS ensembles, though, the red lines at the end, going very negative with the AO in the coming couple of weeks. It's going to take us more or less to the end of February just here. And many of these ensemble members are going down into negative territory. Some of them are doing a little bit of a plunge, probably a bit over top. But certainly the trend there from the GFS ensembles is to go negative with the Arctic Oscillation. And remember, it's always the weather that's driving the index. So the reason those ensemble members are going negative is because they're picking up on high pressure and blocking setting up over the pole, probably as a result of the stratospheric warming. So as the blocking forms, so the AO, the index starts to tank, and it's always the weather that drives the index, not the other way around. But certainly from an Arctic perspective, it does look as though we're going to be sending it negative to go through to the end of the month. We are probably going to be setting up some blocking. The other factor, though, is the NAO. This is the NAO North Atlantic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. Again, the black line shows where we've been with the NAO. We're going right way back to the autumn. Red lines at the end where GFS ensembles where GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. So back in November, the NAO was generally negative, certainly through the second half of the month. From around the 1st of December, almost happened on the turn of autumn to winter, the NAO started to go positive, and it's been positive, solidly positive throughout the winter, right up to where we are now, which is just there. And this is the reason we haven't had a desperately cold winter. The Arctic has been trying continuously to push out cold air through this winter. You have had quite a lot of high pressure over the Arctic, have had quite a lot of blocking, and that's the reason we have had some bouts of cold weather and snow, certainly more than we've had for quite a few winters. Has been a colder winter, but never truly able to lock in to prolonged and severe cold weather, and the reason is because the Atlantic has been in its positive NAO phase. So when you are positive with the NAO, you're going to have low pressure around Iceland, high pressure around Spain and back to the Azores, and you're going to strengthen westerly winds. So that's why I've had a lot of fighting going on this winter, a lot of chopping and changing from day to day, week to week, month to month, is because the Arctic has been trying to push out cold air into the UK and Europe, but the Atlantic has tried to maintain the westerly winds, the westerly flow, and so we've had the two indexes, or the two areas sort of fighting against one another. So we are very positive with the NAO right now, and the GFS ensembles are generally forecasting the NAO to stay positive as well. There is a little bit of a dip starting to take place. We have one ensemble member that's going negative, but generally I think the GFS ensembles want to maintain the positive phase of the NAO going through to the end of February. And until the NAO goes negative, until we have both the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations in their negative phase, and when the NAO goes negative, you'll set up high pressure around Iceland and low pressure through the Azores. Until that happens, I think it is quite doubtful whether we'll be able to maintain especially cold conditions for a prolonged period. So we need, if we're going to get into a prolonged cold spell, I'm not sure anybody really wants a prolonged cold spell now because we are heading ever closer towards spring, but if we was to go into a prolonged cold spell, I think we would need to see signs of the NAO starting to move down into its negative phase. Now, the only thing I'd say is that these indexes normally run in blocks of sort of 2 or 3 months. We've had a long run now of positivity of the NAO. It started around the 1st of December, and it's just been going more and more positive through the winter. So this has gone on quite a long time. I suspect we will shift into the negative phase of the NAO before too much longer. Perhaps we'll do it into spring. I'm not sure that'll be particularly good news. But I would suspect we will start seeing the NAO moving down into negative territory before too much longer. But we'll keep an eye on the indexes, see if they start to pick up any effects from the sudden stratospheric warming over the next few days. Right, looking at weather next week to 10 days then, and this is the GFS samples for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. We're going to be quite cold actually over the next few days, going colder than average, although we do get a brief warm-up there occurring around the middle part of the week, but then after that going quite cold again at the end of the week and into next weekend. You'll notice as we go through to the final week of February, which is this period just here, generally the GFS ensembles, and we will do an ensembles watch later to see what all of these are showing individually, but generally the GFS ensembles are still quite cold here as we're going through into the sort of final week to 10 days of February. But there are several ensemble members that are going for very mild conditions. So these ones presumably would be starting to place us on the mild side of the blocking feature, what I was talking about earlier on. And maybe bringing some warmth up from southern climes there with those ensemble members. But they are outliers. They aren't particularly well supported. Most of the GFS ensembles still look as though they're going for quite cold conditions. In terms of precipitation, I've got some precipitation coming up this week. There will be a mix of rain and snow around at times through the course of this week. Incidentally, there will be snow showers today across the northern and western parts of the country. If you want to know more about that, do check out the snow watch that we did last night. Drying trend as we go through to the final week of February, and that's as the atmospheric pattern is changing. There will be significant changes to the pattern, I think, as we go into the last week of February and extending into March. It'll just be a question of what those changes actually are. Temperature anomalies for the next week, the 11th through to the 19th of February, look like that, coming out generally colder than average for the UK and Ireland. Much of Europe is also coming out cold and average, but warmth, as it's been all winter really, remains over in particularly the southeastern part of Europe. Precipitation anomalies from the 11th to the 19th of February, close to average, a little bit wetter than average, or a little bit above average, I suppose you would say, up in the north. This is the midnight run of the GFS, and we're starting on Thursday, looking quite cold and windy with wintry showers in the north on Thursday. We go through to next weekend. This is Saturday 17th February. Pressure is generally starting to rise both from the south and from the west, starting to break us out of that unsettled weather. And as we go through to Sunday the 18th and then on to Monday the 19th, we start to build that ridge out to the north and west, which turns the winds into the northeast, becoming a lot colder then on the midnight run of the GFS, pulling in cold, bitterly cold, east or northeast winds. And, excuse me, up to day 10, which is Wednesday 21st of February, we're keeping it generally cold with high pressure close to the country and also trying to get up towards Scandinavia. In the extended range, we do actually pull in a proper easterly wind, or we did pull in a proper easterly wind, and we sort of locked into a very cold spell of weather going into the final week of February with these easterlies coming from long east. Look how far east the isobars go going right way back into Russia and pushing across Europe into the UK, and also extending further west across the Atlantic towards Canada. That's a very, very blocked setup indeed. And with this low pressure down to our south, we would have snow threatening southern parts of the country. In that sort of situation, we're at the end of the run. Tuesday 27th of February, that would be a very significant snow event indeed. So that was a midnight run. It turned very, very cold and wintry indeed, but check out what happened on the latest run, the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. Again, we start off with agreement. This is for Thursday. Cold westerly winds with wintry showers. Then pressure starting to build from the south and also from the west, breaking us out of that unsettled weather. Quite cold at this point, probably with frost and fog as well. But do we get that ridge to the north? No, we don't. Actually, we just keep the ridge through the country. So certainly a change in the pattern takes place there, but not a change to something particularly cold and wintry. We just keep that high pressure close to the country. Probably a fair amount of frost and fog, I would have thought, but not getting the high pressure up to Scandinavia, not pulling in the winds from the east, such as we saw with the midnight run of the GFS. And then into the extended range, actually, we bring back quite a lot of energy from the north and the west, so we don't get rid on this run of the polar vortex. That keeps churning away close to Greenland and Iceland, despite the sudden stratospheric warming. Not enough at that point anyway to kill off the polar vortex, get rid of it. So we keep the westerly flow going actually on this run of the GFS 6 o'clock run, and that's how we finish up on the end of the run on Tuesday 27th of February. Still looking very unsettled with winds in from the west, so no cold weather particularly, certainly not from the north or the east on that run of a GFS. And it just goes to show you how the models are shifting, chopping and changing. They're trying to get to grips with this warming of the stratosphere and what the impacts of it are going to be. That explains why model reliability is becoming so low. It's almost like throwing a bomb into the atmospheric system, this stratospheric warming. The pieces are all being pushed out away from the Arctic, and the models are trying to put the jigsaw back together and work out what the impacts are going to be. And so we can expect very, very poor model reliability in the coming days. Do expect a lot of shifting and chopping and changing, and don't necessarily believe anything you see in any model output, certainly from around next weekend onwards for the next few days. That was all GFS. This is the ECMWF, and again, cold with wintry showers from the Atlantic on Thursday, and then we go through to the weekend. Again, raising heights gradually from the south. We are raising pressure quite weakly to our north as well, but no particularly cold weather coming before day 10 anyway. This takes us to Wednesday, 21st of February, and the winds are remaining from a west or southwesterly direction at that point, so mild weather into the second half of February. However, the ECMWF ensembles, this is from DeBuilt, this is where we're going to finish, are showing again a lot of uncertainty, and the red line here is depicting that operational run of the ECMWF that I was just showing you, and you'll see that was just about the warmest ensemble member actually within the ECMWF DeBuilt ensembles. And there's kind of like a 50-50 split really, I think, between the ensembles, between the milder members, which are up there, and the colder members. Some of them are very cold members, but are down here. I mean, some of these coldest ensemble members are taking temperatures at DeBuilt down towards -10, and with ice days too, as we go into the final week of February. So it's all up the grabs. I think that's the message from the models today. It is very much up the grabs what's going to happen for the final week to 10 days of February. Bear in mind, there is usually a time lag when we have these warmings of the stratosphere, between the stratosphere warming and the effects lower down in the troposphere. So even if we don't get anything particularly cold sort of this side of the end of February, it may well be that we aren't out of the woods even into March, possibly even into April, would you believe. This significant warming of the stratosphere could still be having effects. I mean, if you remember, the sudden stratospheric warming occurred in early January 2013. It wasn't really until March, especially the second half of March 2013, that the blocking really intensified, and we went off and running into an exceptionally cold and snowy month in March 2013. It's our coldest March in the Central England region since around 1883. So it took around a couple of months, actually, before the blocking was at its peak from that sudden stratospheric warming. So if we think that that might happen again, that will take us to April, when the blocking will be at its peak. No two events are ever alike, but I'm just sort of highlighting the fact that even if we don't get an initial response this side of February, or this side of the end of February, even if we don't get an initial response in terms of blocking, we won't be out of the woods to the chance of cold and wintry conditions occurring from this warming of the stratosphere at any point through March, possibly even into April as well. So probably not very good news for gardeners and growers who will be wanting to get on with the spring, but that could be what we're shaping up with this season. Right, so that's your Sunday roundup done. We've done sort of Sunday as well. Just got the Ensembles Watch to go this evening, and that'll be all the updates for today. So come back this evening around 7 o'clock. Hopefully, YouTube is taking a very long time at the moment to process some of the videos, so it might be a bit later than 7 o'clock. But sometime this evening, there will be an Ensembles Watch. Right, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.